There's my mic. Sorry about that. What's going on, guys? Welcome in. This is the W.A.D.E Concept Podcast. What is going on, everybody? Today is Friday the 13th. In other words, it's scary hours here at the W.A.D.E Concept, and we have a fight tomorrow. So, before we get into all that, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. If you're not subscribed on the YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Hit that like button if you like what we're doing here. And if you're not subscribed on the Apple Podcast or Spotify or SoundCloud, wherever else my podcast is, make sure you go subscribe, leave a rating and review. That really helps out the podcast. And if you're driving in the car or if you just don't have time to watch, it's another great way to experience being here in the W.A.D.E Concept with everybody. And we get to talk and joke around, and we get to break down people punching each other in the face for a good 45 minutes to an hour every couple days. So it's a great way to be a part of the podcast, and make sure you're doing that over there if you're not able to watch the full YouTube video when we do our podcast. So thank you guys so much. And it is Friday, guys. For most people, Friday is a sense of relief, right? You're finally done with your work week. You get to kick back on the couch and do whatever you want to do on your weekend. Well, for me, we're just ramping up, baby. In fact, I got to go to an interview in about an hour here. And I got work after that. And then, unfortunately, tomorrow we won't be able to live stream the UFC Vancouver card, which we're going to talk about today. By the way, that thumbnail, though, on the YouTube, you know what I'm saying? Scary hours, Friday the 13th. Jason Voorhees coming through. Anyway, yeah, we got to go to work later, and unfortunately, we got to go tomorrow. So no live stream tomorrow, but today is all about predictions for tomorrow's card. Predictions. Not going to be a terribly long episode today. Because we are doing predictions, it's only going to be just that. We're going to talk a little bit about matchups, a little bit about why we're picking, who we're picking, and from there, we're just going to make our picks. And guys, like I said, I was 5-1 last week. I'm looking to go 6-0 this week. We actually, you know what we're going to do? I think it's kind of cool for us to start doing is we'll pick the main card. We'll pick all 6 of the main card fights, and then we'll also pick a prelim fight. I think that's kind of cool to do because while we can't predict all the fights and we can't pick all the fights, I do like to pick one of the fights out of the prelims. And in this week, it's kind of a special pick, and I'll get to why that is in just a second. But let's, without any further ado, guys, I'm looking to go 7-0 this week because we are picking one more. 7-0. No more of this 2-5. No more of this missing every prediction. And I do have a little bit to switch up. But maybe it's the Friday the 13th, Freaky Friday getting to me. But I got some interesting picks today. So, we will start with our prelim pick. And I'll go ahead and do the open screen for you guys. For the people listening on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else, I do a comprehensive predictions episode. So you guys get to see exactly the card I'm picking from. So, like I said, if you guys are on just the Apple Podcast, you're missing out, man. Make sure you subscribe on the YouTube because we're doing comprehensive visual and audio picks. Dual threat, I am. I'm a dual threat podcaster. You understand? Your favorite ain't doing that. Your favorite podcaster ain't doing that. Anyway, let's get into it. So, our prelim pick, I'm actually going to go with something I find pretty interesting. So, if you guys don't know, I go to Team Oyama Fitness. And Team Oyama Fitness is an MMA gym here kind of locally where I'm at. I'm not going to give away exactly where I live. But it's here in Orange County, California, locally to where I am. And one of the fighters that fights out of this gym is Luis Smolka. And he is, I think he's a UFC veteran. I just learned about him being at my gym. I didn't know this. And I've seen a couple of his fights. And obviously, with him going to the same gym I'm going to, without knowing a ton of Smolka's background, I'm going to go with him as our prelim pick today. And I just think it's a kind of a cool little parallel because I've just started at this gym, weeks ago, months ago. And for me to be able to see in person him walk into the gym and walk out and him speak to a class, because I think he does lead a couple of classes. And I know he splits his time and he goes to another gym as well, but him being in my gym is a kind of a cool deal for me. So we're going to go with him as our prelim pick today. and then we'll move right on to the main card. I just think it's a cool thing for me, man, because I've never been in a gym that housed, professional fighters outside of the amateurs that were in the gym trying to become professionals. So for me to be a part of a gym that houses professional fighters like Carlos Esparza, Louis Smolka, there's tons of other, like Alex Perez, tons of other guys in that gym that also lead classes. It's pretty special to me. So we're going to ride with our Team Oyama, and go with Louis Smolka. Okay, on to the main card, and we're going to start with Misha Cirkunov and Jimmy Trout. And not to kind of throw Jimmy under the bus here, just don't know a lot about the guy. Obviously, Misha Cirkunov holds a pretty good amount of wins over some big names. Even I think a guy on this card in Krylov. I think that Misha Cirkunov holds a win over him. I think that Krylov got that W back, but we're gonna go with Misha Cirkunov here, and we're gonna go by submission. Misha got obliterated by Johnny Walker with that spinning back fist, or was it flying knee? And so trying to recover from that loss, come back, gets a W today, or tomorrow, I should say. We're going to go with Misha in the opening fight of the main card. Moving right along to one of my favorite fighters, kind of a fighter I've followed for a long, long time, and that's Uriah Hall. I've always been a fan of Uriah, and watching his fights, he has some of the most spectacular techniques you've ever seen. Kickboxing, standing up, he's got some of the most flashy highlight knockouts that have existed in MMA. You can look him up. I mean, the guy has insane spinning back kicks, insane pop and power in his hands when he hits you moving forward. So yeah, for me, Uriah Hall is almost like a passion follow. I've always been a fan of his. I've always watched his fights regardless if he wins or loses. And the problem with Uriah, it's not even a problem, but one of the things that holds him up, I feel like, and because he's got all the talent in the world. Obviously, the ground game it could be worked on a little more. But as far as his stand up, he's lost some stand up fights just based on his inability to pull that trigger. And he's been open about his inability to do so in certain situations, whether it be a mental thing where he's not quite in rhythm, or if it's just one of those things where he doesn't quite think he can win the fight and he gets down on himself and he loses confidence. But when Uriah Hall fights with confidence, I mean, his name's Prime Time. His nickname is Prime Time for a reason. The guy puts people away in the most spectacular fashion that you'll ever see in MMA. I mean, he has the greatest knockout on the Ultimate Fighter history. Beat Gegard Mousasi, has knocked out tons of guys. Obviously came off a loss to Paulo Costa, and Paulo Costa's no joke at all. And Uriah had his moments in that fight, but Paulo just overwhelmed him. But this is a good fight for Uriah to try to get back into that conversation of top 10, possibly even further into that top 8 or 7 with a win. Antonio Carlos Jr., obviously another great fighter. I don't think that. Hey, John, what's going on, baby? John takes ACJ for the win. It's going to be a tough fight for Uriah. I'm not going to sugarcoat what I think is going to happen in the fight. I think Antonio possesses a myriad of strengths, from obviously ground game. His stand-up is no joke. It's not like he's going to go out and throw the flashy combos that Uriah will, but Uriah obviously throwing those highlight, real knockouts and some of those explosive attacks does leave himself open for different grappling situations and or later in the rounds a little bit of volume if Antonio can put that on him. So it's going to be a hard fight for Uriah, but I think it's more of a passion pick for me than anything. And I do have a bias when some of these fights, and our first 2 picks are bias picks. It is what it is. But we're going to go with Uriah Hall. And I'm going to say Uriah gets it done by TKO or KO. And we'll say in the late, we'll say like late second round or early third. What did I say? I said Misha by submission. Yeah, Misha by submission, and we'll say that's in the second round. Second round, yeah. Okay, and then we move on. Michael Pereira and Tristan Conley. Now, Michael missed weight this morning. For people that have been watching the weigh-ins, Pereira missed weight, so obviously that's a little bit of an issue. But fight's still going on. Tristan Conley coming in, a guy, again, a local guy in Vancouver, doesn't have any record to show. So that's a little bit of a tell as to kind of how this fight looks like it might go. I mean, I'm without much going on. Yeah, Uriah doesn't. John, I think you're talking about Uriah not doing well under pressure. He does have some sort of issues when he does get pressure forward in his face, and that's mostly because he can't get off his volume or his explosive strikes with volume and things so close to him that he can't open up. And then when he can't open up, he has a really hard time later in the fight going back and establishing his range and or confidence in his strikes, and then moving forward and putting them together, because Uriah can do it with the best of them. It's just sometimes he doesn't put it all together in this fight. For Pereira, it's a pretty simple pick here. I don't know a lot on Tristan Conley. I don't think a lot of people do. And if you do, please let me know. Like, the UFC doesn't even have a record for the guy. Like I said, I'm sure he's a local guy from Vancouver, and they love to do that when they go to these places like Vancouver, anywhere they go to, and there's hometown guys that they can put on the card against some of their fighters, they will do that. One, to obviously fill the arena, make sure that those hometown fans come out and support their own, but two, to give these guys like Tristan a platform to possibly, make their way into the UFC and really, make waves for their career. So it's always a good kind of marriage between City and UFC when they come to do their fight nights or even their pay-per-view cards on these prelims and stuff. But Pereira is going to cut this man up. He's going to butcher this guy, and it's not going to be pretty. Yeah, John, it's going to be nasty. It's going to be a nasty KO for Michael Pereira. And like I said, he missed weight, so hopefully Tristan gets to come away with a little bit of money. But this looks like it's like a setup job by the UFC. So we're going Pereira by KO. We'll say, I think he gets it done quick. We'll say a first round KO. And moving on. Now, this is an interesting fight to me, guys. I don't know about you guys. This is an interesting fight to me, this next fight. Todd Duffee, Jeff Hughes. Mainly because Todd Duffee, if I'm correct, hasn't fought since 2015. Is that correct? Let's look. So we have Todd Duffee. Fight history. His last fight, June 15th, 2015, against Frank Mir. So Todd Duffee, you're telling me he hasn't fought in 4 years. Coming back after a long, long layoff. He's going to fight Jeff Hughes. Jeff Hughes, who has just won on the Contender Series, got a kind of a raw deal in his last fight, a split decision over Maurice Green, a guy who he'd already beaten outside of the UFC and LFA. But if anything about Jeff Hughes, what you see from him, a lot of KOs. Guy holds tons of power. His KO on the Dana White Contender Series pretty much earned him a contract with the UFC. So you're going to look at some big power coming from Jeff Hughes. And again, 4 years off for Todd Duffee. I like Todd. I retweeted Todd on Twitter, or retweeted an interview with Todd Duffee talking about how MMA media doesn't really promote these fighters, and it's not necessarily their job to kind of oppose what Todd said, but they basically they don't give these fighters the respect that they deserve, regardless win or loss, how tough this sport is and how dangerous it is to go into a cage and fight another human being with basically no padding on and expect a fighter to succeed at the highest level. Every single fighter that's in the UFC is succeeding at the highest level. So I agreed with Todd on what he said, and I thought that some people needed to hear that in the media, because it's really easy to go, oh, a guy sucks after he loses a fight. When he's in the UFC, and people that watch the UFC don't realize that there are guys outside of the UFC by the thousands trying to get into this company. And these are the elite of the elite. That Bellator, one championship. These are the elite fighters in the world. And that's the top. It's like the NFL, NBA. It's the top 1%. So I thought Todd, used that kind of platform he had for this fight to really kind of make sure the media knew exactly what these fighters go through, or at least remind them. Because sometimes I think I'll consider myself media, even though I think I'm more of an opinionated commentator that kind of just says what I feel, and you guys in my community, you say what you feel, and we just kind of go from there. But I feel like Todd needed to say what he said, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. With that being said, My man Jeff Hughes. Let's just take a look at that nickname. Lights out. That's what we're going with today. Lights out. I think Todd's just taking too long off. 4 years is way too long. And Todd's not a young guy at this point. And Jeff Hughes has been active, regardless if it was a split decision loss or not. He's been active. He's fought twice in the last, 10 to 11 months. And then, like I said, at heavyweight, these guys are going to be throwing bombs. And anything could happen. Todd Duffee could come out, dump Jeff Hughes on his head, and land some nasty ground and pound, and we could sit here looking like idiots. But I think for what we're looking at with Jeff Hughes, it's a guy that's trying to rise through that heavyweight rank and get into that top 20 talk and possibly just figure out a way to get into the rankings. I don't think Todd Duffee's going to be around much longer. I think this is kind of one of his send-off fights to get a win and then possibly go back into retirement or go back into that kind of vacant area where he's not really fighting. He's kind of on a hiatus. So I don't think that this is something Todd Duffee is looking to come back and really be a contender in the heavyweight division. I think he's trying to get that W and ride off into the sunset. But we're going to go with Jeff Hughes via, you know what? I'll say via decision. I think Jeff Hughes comes out slanging. I think Todd withstands him for a couple of rounds. But I think volume and the ability to we'll see if Jeff Hughes can defend takedowns. But if he can, the ability to defend takedowns and land volume strikes, I'll say Jeff Hughes by decision. See that, John? We're not agreeing on everything. All right. So we have Glover Teixeira and Nikita Krylov next. Interesting fight. Glover, obviously, one of the best grapplers to ever grace the light heavyweight division. A little bit past the point, and it's kind of frustrating if you're a fan of Glover Teixeira because it took him so long with visa issues to get into the UFC. At the time, he was one of the best in the world. I really think he could have competed and won a belt at light heavyweight. Unfortunately, by the time he did get to the UFC, it was a little bit too late. And while he won, he obviously made a huge impression. The younger guys that started to catch up, like the John Joneses, like the Alexander Gustafssons, the Anthony Rumble Johnsons, those guys, passed him by at that point. And, it's unfortunate for Glover that it took so long because he really is one of the best grapplers in that weight class's history. And even his stand-up, I think he to his detriment, he's fallen in love with a little bit of his hands over the past, couple of years. And that grappling has just not been able to get him over the hump by itself. And obviously his stand-up isn't anywhere near the likes of a Alexander Gustafsson or the power that Anthony Rumble Johnson possesses. But in this fight, Nikita Krylov is a dangerous, very dangerous opponent. We'll take a look at both the guys' records really quick. So we have Glover here, 29-7, coming off 2 wins. So obviously implementing a little bit more of our Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that we'd like to see from Glover. God, ads by Google, man. Get out of here. I need a VPN. Submission. 2 submissions in a row after the loss to Corey Anderson. Beat Misha Cirkunov. So that's a nice win he has. And then obviously the uppercut fest that Alexander Gustafsson gave to him. But, went over Jerry Cannonier. So Glover obviously coming off the last couple of wins. His grappling is always going to be elite. It's just a matter of can he get this guy, Nikita Krylov, in a bad spot. And guys have done it before. I mean, you can see Jan Blachowicz submitted him. Misha Cirkunov submitted him. Ovince St. Peru submitted him, even though he got that win back over Ovince St. Peru in his last fight. So there are things that if you get Nikita on the ground, there are positions, especially it looks like that arm triangle, which Glover is a very good arm triangle submission specialist, that you can catch him in. But I am going to go with Nikita Krylov in an upset. I think that over the course of the fight, Glover starts to slow down a little more. And I don't think that this is going to be a grappling exchange. Believe it or not, I think Nikita's going to try to pop that jab. He's got a reach advantage here. And I think he's going to try to move in and really out-volume strike Glover Teixeira, get him frustrated, and then maybe possibly later in the fight, use those later rounds to establish some sort of grappling exchange and then possibly look for a submission. I just think it's going to be unanimous decision, Nikita Krylov. All right. that is our co-main, believe it or not. So the card itself, while there are some great fights, even on the prelims, the card itself, not huge name-worthy wise, right? Not a lot of weight behind the names on this card. I mean, yes, Glover Teixeira is a huge name. It almost feels like I don't want to, disrespect any of these guys. It almost feels like the over-the-hill card, right? You have Glover Teixeira, you have Todd Duffee, you have Misha Cirkunov, these big. So it's a heavyweight and light heavyweight based card, right? With a lightweight main event. But a lot of the bigger fights on this card are a lot of the volume of fights in this card are heavyweight and light heavyweight guys. So really trying to work in the lower parts of that division. I think the UFC is trying to find some guys to step up and rise to the occasion because they are going to be looking for light heavyweight and heavyweight matchups going forward. John doesn't have a fight. Stipe doesn't have a fight. Francis doesn't have a fight. Alex says he's coming back looking for a fight. So they're looking for guys to, step up in that division and challenge and at least get some wins under their belt so that they can move forward with scheduling for John and Stipe and other guys in the top 5 in both those divisions. But on to our main event, and obviously the biggest reason to watch this card, we have Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Justin the Highlight Gaethje. And this is excuse my language, guys, this is a fucking fight. A fight. And what people think is going to happen is that Justin's going to come forward, establish a ton of pressure. Donald's going to have to either find a way to handle that and then, get into his rhythm, which he does over the course of a fight. It's a 5-round fight. We've both seen these guys. I've seen Donald dominate for 5. I've seen Justin go through 5 and look like he's about to fall over from exhaustion, but still keep going. John, I like the pick, man. Cerrone 5th round TKO. It's a pretty, logical pick. But look, guys, this is Friday the 13th, okay? Friday the 13th, Freaky Friday. I don't know if I'm just feeling a little different. I don't know if I'm just buying into Justin Gaethje, in his like how he's talking lately and how he's talking about the game and he's going to sleep or I'm going to sleep. That's Justin Gaethje's style through and through. But you watch him talk and the confidence is building in this guy. Whereas a couple of fights ago, we didn't know if Justin Gaethje was going to keep fighting, and he still talks about when he's done, when he doesn't feel like he can be a champ anymore, he won't. And a lot of guys say that, but Justin Gaethje seems like a guy that when he says things like that, he 100% believes it. He 100% means it. Like I've heard guys say, "Well, I'm gonna retire, right? I don't know what I'm gonna do after this fight if they take a loss or something. I'm gonna retire," just to come back and say, "Well, I'm back now," so they can get people to go, "No, don't retire. Please don't retire. We need you." Justin Gaethje, I think when he, honestly, to him, feels like he just can't do it anymore, he's gone. So this guy is lightning in a bottle, and we better appreciate both these guys because Donald, we're not going to get Donald for much longer, guys. I don't know Donald's exact age, but I know he's in his late 30s. We're not getting him for much longer. Justin, obviously, his fight style is not going to convert well into his late 30s. And part of the reason Donald stayed around for so long is because he is such a technical striker. But people forget, Donald Cerrone's a great wrestler. Donald Cerrone's a great submission artist, jiu-jitsu, very, very talented on the ground. Donald Cerrone took down Tony Ferguson. Took him down. Granted, Tony obviously got up, and he's great off his back and able to scramble to his feet. But Donald Cerrone took down Tony Ferguson, handled Mike Perry's shot like a pro, locked up that armbar quick. He's done it to countless guys. He has 36 wins in his career. So you're talking about a guy that's good everywhere. And Justin Gaethje, while we know he's a great wrestler, hasn't really implemented that to a point that we think he can yet, or at least like we outside of his camp and actual fighters that know Justin Gaethje, we know he can wrestle. We just haven't seen him do that effectively in the UFC. And maybe it's because it's not a part of his game plan anymore. Maybe he's evolved as a fighter to not just wrestle. And maybe it's just a mentality where he wants to go out and knock dudes dead. I think that's probably more of the truth behind it, is that he just wants to go out and knock fools dead and live with the consequences of it. It makes it an entertaining fight for everybody. That's why he's won fight of the night, I think, 3 times in his last 3. Performance of the night, he just is one of those guys that's going to bite down on the mouthpiece, come forward, what you got. Either you're going to sleep or I am. And it takes a different level of courage and bravery. And I know it sounds stupid. Obviously, this strategically, it doesn't sound very smart to just walk forward, throw bombs, and someone's going to bed. But in Justin's case, it's he stuck by it. It's worked out well for him. He's starting to not be as wild. The shots are calculated, even though his last 2 wins are by massive overhand right. But it doesn't look like he's putting himself in as much danger. The leg kicks obviously are crucial for Justin Gaethje. To take a guy like Cowboy out of his game, those leg kicks are going to be massive. And when he hits you, it feels like, or other fighters have said, it feels like a baseball bat slamming into your leg over and over and over. And Justin's willing to give that to you. The entire fight, he's going to sit there and leg kick you. Because he's not afraid of being taken down by Donald Cerrone. And I don't think Donald Cerrone is going to be afraid of taking down by Justin Gaethje. So we come to an impasse where the matchup is going to be basically, and we'll get off this screen so I can go back to single cam. The matchup is basically going to be, can Donald Cerrone weather this big early storm that Justin Gaethje provides? At least, generally speaking, that's what a lot of people think is going to happen. Or is Justin Gaethje going to come out, put the fire on Donald, and put him away quick? I don't think that's the way this fight's going to go. I think a lot of people are thinking Justin's going to come out, barrage, Donald survives, comes on late with a big flurry. I think Justin's going to be more calculated in this fight. He's too close to this title to throw it all away, right? To just go in there head first, head down, and just swing on Donald and hope that he clips him, right? I think Justin's going to go in with a more calculated approach. I think he's going to make Donald believe he's going to come out and be this ferocious first-round barrage, all types of crazy punches, moving forward constantly, never giving up a back step. I think he wants Donald to believe that, and I think as the fight starts, it's going to be more pattern-based from Justin Gaethje. I think it's going to be a lot of combinations quickly, ending on the leg kick, but not anything where he has to go forward and expose himself to Donald's, counter head kicks or Donald's combinations or even a takedown from Donald. I think Justin's going to fight more calculated, a little smarter. I was talking about his age, by the way. I also forgot he has 36 wins. Yeah, he's 36-36. Islam is out here letting the people know. Donald's 30. Donald could go for 4 more years the way he fights, to be honest. And who knows? I could be completely wrong about this, but I just don't feel like we're going to get Donald for too much longer. So I was right there, 36-37. But I just think Justin realizes how close he is to this title. And with the win, we haven't even talked about. With the win, we're looking at, possibly a matchup with Conor McGregor for either one of these guys. Possibly a matchup with Dustin Poirier for either one of these guys. Or possibly a shot at a title after the Tony Ferguson-Khabib fight for one of these guys. So you're looking at very high stakes for either guy. And I think Justin Gaethje has taken that into account. And because he is so close to this title, and because he understands that this fight will lead to the biggest fight of his career, I think he fights a little smarter. I don't think he comes out and rushes Donald. I think he makes Donald lead. Donald, when he leads, especially early, isn't the most comfortable. When he gets into his flow and then he starts leading the dance, look what he did to Al Iaquinta. When he starts to lead the dance in that fight, when you let him start to get on his front foot later in that first round and second round, then he starts to really put some pressure on you. But Donald doesn't lead to start the fight. Donald's taking time to analyze the situation and see what it is that you're bringing to the table. I think Justin Gaethje's fine with him doing that and then putting on the barrage. Maybe late first round, early second, and then starting to keep that volume striking going. Because, Justin, we've seen as fights go on, 5-rounders, even late third-rounders against Michael Johnson, he starts to really have almost no energy. It looks like he is just on the wobbliest legs. Not because, in Michael Johnson fight, he got cracked a ton of times, but sometimes it was more so just because it looked like he was tired. So I think for a 5-round fight, and it's really hard to put Donald away, you're going to see Justin Gaethje, he's going to be more calculated in this fight. And I'm going to go Justin Gaethje. Dude, you. All right, Islam. I don't know what that means. Yeah, he brutalized Al Iaquinta. Brutalized him. He just, in every aspect of the fight, Donald owned that fight. And in the 5th round, when he had Oh, I appreciate that, Islam. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Look, I don't consider myself to be better or worse than anybody. I'm just trying to make something of myself, man. I want to do this for a career. I want to be a UFC commentator, analyst, broadcaster. And I don't know if you guys aren't following Twitter. I applied this week, and this is kind of off subject, and we'll get back to this. But I applied this last few months to be with the UFC for their internships this fall. Didn't quite get there. I got rejected actually on all 8 or 9 of the inquiries I had, and that's okay. But we just keep moving forward, baby. But I appreciate it, Islam. Thank you so much, man. Hey, all I'm saying is, look, ain't nobody else doing 3 times a week. Ain't nobody else doing the live stream reactions 8 hours with you guys. That doesn't make me better or worse. I love doing this. That's it. I love doing it. I love talking about these fights. I love being in this world. The fight business is where I see myself, so that's why I do it. But appreciate that, my man. But yeah, so I think Justin Gaethje, guys, I think that Justin's going to have an upset here. And it's not necessarily an upset. I mean, it's a 4 versus 5 matchup. But I think a lot of people are going the route that John is going. And, Donald's going to overwhelm Justin with volume, with technique. And he's going to hold off that big kind of surge from Justin Gaethje. And how many does Justin really have in the tank, Because when he comes after you and comes after you and comes after you, at some point, those surges, when that explosion starts to diminish. And the way Donald fights, he's not really an explosion fighter. He's a combo striker. And he uses those combos and those techniques to kind of walk you into dead water, into dead space, and then bangs the head kick over the top, or that combo with the leg kick. Then the body kick's coming. He front kicked Al Iaquinta in the face and almost put him away. So he's a Swiss Army knife. I just think Justin Gaethje is that rock that's going to dull the blade a little bit and just keep pounding and keep moving forward. And finally, at some point, I think Justin gets the finish. I think Justin Gaethje gets a finish, and we'll say the 4th round. I think he hits Donald with something heavy, and he swarms him. And we got Justin Gaethje late 4th. We'll say early 4th round. I don't know how Justin's going to look in that 4th, but we'll say, yeah, no dents. What's up, Tom? If Justin fights like he did against Barboza, Donald could be in for a long night. Yeah, I mean, while it was a short fight, the way Justin came out against Edson Barboza, he wasn't chasing Edson around. You've seen Justin Gaethje chase a lot. You've seen him chase Michael Johnson. You saw him chase Dustin Poirier and get clipped for it. He was cutting Edson Barboza, one of the nastiest strikers in the game. He was cutting him off from side to side on that cage. Justin was there, and he clipped him on the end of a punch that, had he not landed that, I don't think that there was going to be any change in the guard right there from Edson Barboza. He was on the back foot, and Edson doesn't fight very well off his back foot. He saw what was in front of him, and Justin was just pouring on the pressure. Donald doesn't fight well off his back foot either, but I do think this is going to be a little bit different fight. I think this is going to be different from just Justin sprinting out, cutting off the cage, throwing bombs, and catching Cowboy. I think he's going to be more methodical. I think he gets a finish in the early 4th round or late 3rd. I think he comes in and shows everybody he's not just a one-trick pony running forward, throwing bombs. I think he shows that he can compete with these guys on the highest level, technique-wise. I want to see an improved cardio from Justin Gaethje, so I'm almost speaking that into existence with my pick. I want to see more of that championship-level cardio, because I do want to see him, go forward in his career and do great things. And I also do want to see that for Donald. So while I don't have a favorite in this fight, I'm going with Justin Gaethje, guys. What's next for the winner? We were just talking about that, Tom. I think if Justin Gaethje wins this fight, for either guy, I could very well see Conor McGregor. It's so hard to predict what Conor's going to do. It really is, because you hear him calling out a lot of guys, and you hear him talking about who he wants to fight, and this fight almost is going to happen, and then this. I could see either one of these guys fighting Conor McGregor next. A lot of people would tune in for that fight. I think it would make a lot of sense for the division, because Conor is had some time off, and the rematch with Khabib doesn't make a lot of sense right now, with Tony waiting in the wings and Tony having the credentials and the resume and quite frankly, just the actual fights lined up, the activity that Conor hasn't had. That makes far more sense than Conor getting the rematch right now with Khabib. So I think for people to be reminded of who Conor McGregor is, and to be able to see him fight again and compete, that's all we want to see is Conor compete. I think the winner could definitely get Conor McGregor. And if not, you do have Dustin Poirier sitting right there with nothing to do right now. And this is very, very quick for Dustin, right? Dustin just came off a loss. It's almost, disrespectful to go, well, Dustin needs to fight them next. Let's give Dustin some time. That guy has put in a ton of work over the last couple of years and just fought and clawed and scratched his way to the top. But if Dustin's ready to fight, and he seems like he is calling out Conor, I could very well see the winner of these two guys fighting Dustin Poirier as well. So that could be insane. No, I 100% agree, Tom. Conor and Cowboy would do insane pay-per-view numbers. I think, and Chael Sonnen said this, so I'm going to give him his credit. I think Justin Gaethje and Conor McGregor would do big pay-per-view numbers too. Because while Donald Cerrone will kind of bar back and forth with Conor, Justin Gaethje completely dislikes Conor McGregor. He is not he's not going to sit here and put his hands together. Oh, Conor, please Conor, save me. Pay me, please. Red Panty Night. Justin Gaethje's not doing that. And right now Conor is on his disrespectful shit, Mac Conor, you know what I'm saying? Mystic Mac shit, I run this, you need to beg me for a matchup. Justin Gaethje is going to talk his shit too. And a lot of people want to see, Conor lose at this point. And it's unfortunate because Conor was the savior of Irish MMA and captivated the masses when he first broke into the UFC. And people are going to used to want to watch Conor beat everyone. They wanted to see this guy do the things he said he was going to do because it felt like when he said it, we all could live through Conor off his law of attraction. If you believe it and you speak it into existence and you work hard enough, you can go and get it. Well, now people look at Conor as kind of okay, well, you've made all this money. You're just a guy that's kind of retired and outside of the cage. You're not really a great dude. And Justin brought it up. Justin was like, look, you're a terrible father. Inside the cage, you're an amazing fighter, but you're a terrible father, terrible role model. All this. I think that could be some real venom between those two. And it seems like the kind of fight that Conor would want to take was somebody that, a lot of people would say would be favored over Conor in that matchup. I personally, I don't know. I think Conor might get the jump on Justin. But I think either of these guys could get that fight. And then, like I said, let's not forget about Dustin Poirier. He's right there too. And then, obviously, if there's a between the loser of Khabib and Tony, whenever that fight takes place, that could be another potential matchup. I'd love to see Donald get that rematch with Tony. I'd love to see Justin go and try his luck with Tony Ferguson. I always wanted to ask you, why don't you react to UFC videos like other channels do? Lots of views, build a fan base, gain more subscribers. Because, dude, you deserve way more than that. I definitely should, to be honest with you. So the way my schedule kind of works, this isn't an excuse, Islam. I'm with you. I definitely should. I kind of have 3 jobs right now. Imagine doing 4 bad things. They all get you put in the media and everybody hates you for it. I know, John. It's the gift and the curse of superstardom at Conor's level, though, Justin was calling him a terrible father and saying he was just a bad person. Yeah, you can't smack up old people and be looked at as a good guy, especially right now. It's so fresh, But Conor has reason for people to act like that, but he's also the biggest star on the planet. So just like anything else, you're going to be scrutinized to the maximum. You're going to be scrutinized, and everybody's going to be watching every little single thing you do. It's tough, though. But yeah, Islam, I want to, man. If you guys have videos from you want me to react to, I am down to do it because I started a reaction channel on my Wade Plemons channel, and I loved doing it. And it was quick, and I could get pump out a lot of content really quickly. I even did one on this channel with the Conor McGregor. I think he was getting ready for Jose Aldo, and I think it was getting ready for Jose Aldo, but ended up fighting Chad Mendez. It was like a sparring session. If you guys have those videos, send them to me. You guys have my Twitter. It's down below in the description, or hit me up on my. I think I'll leave my business. I'll start putting my business email in the description too. Email me those guys, man. I'm down to do it. I'd love to react to some of the older fights. Last night even I was watching just older fights between Daniel Cormier and Dan Henderson. I watched I watched TJ Dillashaw and Renan Barao last night, and I watched, what was the other one? Cody Garbrandt, Dominic Cruz. Just the entire UFC fight kind of, what do they call it? The fight recaps, where they do they show the fight, different angles of the fight, but then they show the corner reactions, they show crowd reaction. TJ Dillashaw, guys, I know he's under a lot of heat right now, and this is completely off topic, but God, man, that guy is so good. I watched that fight with him and Renan Barão, and the drop step he uses and the different movement he has and his switching of stance, the way he would be able to set up that left high kick and bang it off Renan Barão's neck, insane. You should break down Eddie's first 2 fights in one. Yeah, I'd like to do that. That'd be fun because Eddie's had his struggle since he moved over there. And I think it's not necessarily because Eddie is a worse fighter. One championship has the way their fight divisions are set up. These guys, the way their weigh-ins work, it's a little weird, man, because you got some big 155ers in one, huge guys. Or I don't even know if it's 150. I'm not sure the actual weight class, but the division that Eddie's fighting in, those dudes are massive, bigger than Habib and all these guys that people talk about should move up to welterweight. These guys are huge, and they're legit fighters. One has some legit fighting. But like I said, if you guys want me to react to that kind of stuff, please send it to my Twitter. Just like hit me with a link, YouTube video, whatever. I don't mind at all. But yeah, John, 100%. It's a huge adjustment to go and train here, or even Eddie in Philly, train in the States, and then go fly overseas, have to deal with all that every time you fight, by the way. This isn't like a UFC Asia, like a UFC Shenzhen or UFC China where you just do it one weekend. Every time you fight, you got to reset your alarm clock. You got to reset your body to wake up at a certain time. Then you got to deal with the fact that you just had 8 to 15 hour flight. And now you got jet lag and you got to readjust and you got to be there for a couple of weeks, a different commission. It's insane that, all the stuff they have to go through. But dudes are getting smacked up in the pub seriously, dude. Conor gets off that proper, brother. Conor throws a couple of these shots back and he's smacking dudes, throwing phones. Doesn't matter, dude. You saw that tweet he sent to Dustin? I fed you to the canvas in 90 seconds, bro. He said it's always McGregor. I'm looking at it like, what is this dude talking about, man? And I'm a huge Conor guy, but and again, it's great theater. Conor is one of the best trash talkers in the world. He gets it. He just gets it. But I don't think that fight would go that way. Let's just put it that way. I don't think that fight would go that way again. Kyle. Okay. I mean, John Connery, I thought was more like a Sean Connery play on words. But all right, Kyle. Dope. All right, Kyle. Sweet, man. But that's our show today, guys. I got to kind of get out of here because I got an interview in like an hour for like a brand ambassador position. So we'll see how that goes. Just adding on to those jobs. But Eslam, please send me those videos. Kyle, send me videos, dude. If you guys want me to react to stuff, the Eddie Alvarez stuff, I'll do it. Send me videos on Twitter. I'll start putting my email in the description of videos for like reaction stuff. So it's going to be wplimbusiness@gmail.com, but I'll send that. Appreciate it, Kyle. No worries, dude. Tom, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you guys being in here. Hey, like I said, we're a small community, guys, but I get goosebumps doing this stuff for you guys. I get goosebumps. I love interacting with you. I love talking about these fights. And while I'm not an expert on fighting, I'm getting more and more knowledgeable by the day. Every time I go to Team Oyama and I'm kicking the bag and I'm bruising the hell out of my shins, or I'm learning how to sprawl and I'm stuffing takedowns on other students and I'm doing the other stuff, and I love it, man. I love being immersed in all of this stuff, and I love having you guys here with me. So thank you so much, as always. If you guys aren't subscribed yet on the YouTube, please subscribe. Hit that like button if you guys haven't already, and go subscribe to that Apple Podcasts. You guys got to do that one because when you're on the run, you're on the go. If you're working out, I listen to podcasts when I work out. If you guys want to hear my sexy voice, scratch that. If you guys just want to hear me talking, go subscribe over there. And yeah, I appreciate it, everybody. Take it easy, and we will be back. Let's do Monday. Monday, we'll be back to talk about the fights. I won't be able to live stream react this Saturday, but we are planning something big for November 2nd. Big. It might not be here. It might be in a actual studio. What's my podcast? So on Apple iTunes Podcasts, it's the same name as we have here. It's the W.A.D.E concept on Apple Podcasts. But let's just say yes, we might have a new studio for one night only. Might. I'm not gonna promise anything, but I'm in some talks. We might have a nice official setup, and my boy AJ might be on the podcast with me. So until next time, we are debating everything. Thank you so much, guys. Take it easy.